Before diving into this incredible story, remember to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Here, every story has something to say, and you won't want to miss a single one. Clara Whitmore walked through the opulent lobby of the Starlight Hotel with the self-assurance that only wealth can provide. Her heels clicked on the polished marble, drawing admiring glances from some and envy from others. She wore a designer dress, carried a state-of-the-art handbag, and wore a smug smile that said, "I can get away with anything." At the other end of the counter, Marcus Johnson, the hotel concierge, went about his business calmly. Every gesture he made, every smile he gave the guests, conveyed a quiet dignity, a self-confidence that Clara couldn't understand. But for her, Marcus was only a temporary obstacle in her path. That morning, Clara had decided to ridicule him. For her, humiliating a black employee was a game, a distraction that would leave no trace. She approached the counter with an exaggerated laugh, feigning impatience. "Marcus. Seriously, you should learn to do your job properly." The customers turned around, some shocked by his arrogance, others amused by the scene. Marcus, unperturbed, replied politely. "Ms. Whitmore, I'm simply asking you to wait like everyone else." Clara's smile turned into a scornful laugh. She knew that her name and social standing put her above the rules, that no employee could contradict her without risk. But she was unaware of one crucial detail: behind this concierge lurked far more than just an employee. Marcus wasn't just a janitor. A decorated former army officer, he had saved lives and defended the innocent. His family was influential, and his brother, Elijah Johnson, was a federal attorney renowned for never letting injustice go unpunished. All Clara saw was a man in uniform, a mere employee. What she didn't know was that this moment, this gesture of contempt, would trigger a chain of events she could never control. Humiliating Marcus Johnson wasn't just a lapse in judgment, it was the beginning of her downfall. The silent hall returned to its normal rhythm after a few seconds, but in the shadows, Elijah watched the scene, silent and implacable. Clara thought she was invincible. She would soon discover that some mistakes never go unpunished. The next morning, Clara Whitmore arrived at the Starlight Hotel, still smiling and convinced that her little show from the previous day was forgotten. She wore a chic suit, her hair perfectly styled, and her heels clicked like a victory drum. She spotted Marcus Johnson behind the counter and stepped forward with an air of superiority. "Marcus," she exclaimed with a mocking smile, drawing a few glances from the customers. "You managed to stay up again this morning without making me wait?" "Impressive." Marcus raised his eyes, calm and measured. "Good morning, Mrs. Whitmore. Welcome. Your room is ready, as always." Clara burst out laughing, her tone chilling the entire hall. "As always? Really, Marcus? You're going to too much trouble for so little. Perhaps you should learn to be more efficient." The customers turned around, some smiling nervously, others clearly uncomfortable. Marcus remained calm, but inside he felt anger rising. He knew that responding to arrogance with arrogance would achieve nothing. Instead, he replied with icy calm. "Ms. Whitmore, I treat all clients with the same respect. I advise you to treat the staff the way you would like to be treated." Clara burst out laughing even louder, believing her sarcasm would go unpunished. She made a dramatic gesture towards the hall and whispered to her friends. "Seriously, this is ridiculous. He doesn't even know who I am." But she had completely ignored the presence of someone in the shadows. Elijah Johnson, Marcus's brother and a respected federal lawyer, had just come through the entrance to drop off some documents at the hotel. He had seen everything. His face remained impassive, but his eyes gleamed with icy determination. He discreetly took out his phone and began documenting the scene. Every word Clara spoke, every scornful laugh, was recorded. Elijah knew that this moment, though mundane for Clara, would become a powerful tool. What Clara was completely unaware of was that Marcus and Elijah had connections with the media, influencers, and people in positions of power. Ridiculing Marcus wasn't just an act of contempt, it was the trigger for a storm she never anticipated. Clara turned on her heel, confident of her impunity. But behind her back, Elijah whispered to Marcus. "Don't worry, brother. She'll learn what it means to humiliate the wrong person." Clara Whitmore believed that her social superiority protected her from any consequences. Yet, a few hours after her appearance in the lobby, the world began to turn against her. Elijah Johnson had carefully collected every piece of evidence, videos, staff testimonies, and even Clara's sarcastic messages to her friends. He knew he had to act discreetly, never revealing himself immediately. Meanwhile, Clara returned home, unaware of the storm that was brewing. Her phone vibrated. It was an email from her father, Gregory Whitmore, a powerful man in the business world. "Clara, I heard about an incident at the Starlight Hotel. I expect your report immediately." Clara frowned. "Report? But he's just a concierge," she thought. She replied arrogantly, downplaying the event. But Elijah had already begun to act. He discreetly contacted a local journalist specializing in stories of social injustice. Marcus's account, recounting with dignity the humiliation he had suffered, was published on several platforms. Photos and videos of Clara laughing maliciously and ridiculing Marcus quickly circulated on social media. The next morning, Clara arrived at the hotel to find the first signs of the aftermath. The staff whispered as they looked at her, some guests stared at her with disdain. She felt her aura of superiority begin to crumble. At home, his phone exploded with notifications, indignant comments, viral shares, and press articles criticizing his behavior. Even some of his father's business partners began to worry about his public image. Clara tried to remain calm, but a new sensation gripped her throat: fear. She realized that her minor humiliation was no longer just a game. It had awakened a force she couldn't control. That evening, while she was browsing social media, a message appeared on her screen, signed by an anonymous account. "Some mistakes are never forgotten." Clara turned pale, realizing for the first time that she had just humiliated the wrong person. In the days that followed, Clara Whitmore felt her carefully constructed world begin to crumble. Videos and accounts of her humiliation at the hands of Marcus Johnson circulated everywhere, even reaching influential circles in New York. At the Starlight Hotel, the guests' stares were icy. The employees, once silent in the face of her arrogance, now glared at her with a hint of defiance. Clara realized that her behavior, once ignored or tolerated, would no longer go unnoticed. Her father, Gregory Whitmore, received several calls from concerned business partners. Some threatened to break contracts if his daughter didn't immediately repair her image. The pressure mounted. Clara, used to the world bowing down to her, found herself unable to cope with the onslaught. Meanwhile, Marcus and Elijah meticulously orchestrated their strategy. Marcus continued to work with dignity, allowing attention to naturally shift to Clara. Behind the scenes, Elijah used his contacts to ensure that every instance of Clara's inappropriate behavior was documented and subtly leaked to the media. One morning, Clara was summoned to the Starlight Hotel. The hotel manager looked at her coldly. "Ms. Whitmore, we have received complaints from customers and staff. You will need to issue a public apology and strictly adhere to our rules of conduct." Clara tried to protest, but her voice trembled. For the first time, she couldn't assert her will. She left the hotel with a growing sense of unease, feeling that her family's reputation and her own were seriously compromised. Later, a detailed article appeared on a news site. It recounted the humiliating scene, highlighted Marcus's dignity, and emphasized how Clara had underestimated the consequences of her actions. Social media exploded, indignant comments, shared videos, and public criticism. Clara found herself alone, facing the magnitude of her stupidity. She understood that arrogance and contempt can trigger irreversible consequences when one attacks the wrong person. This fall, although public and humiliating, was only a foretaste of what was to come. Elijah and Marcus had planned one last masterstroke, and Clara was still only at the beginning of her painful apprenticeship in humility. Clara Whitmore stood outside the lobby of the Starlight Hotel, her heart pounding and her face flushed with shame. The past few days had been hell. The articles, videos, and outraged messages on social media had left her alone to face her tarnished reputation. Even her friends seemed to be avoiding her, embarrassed by her downfall. She knew she had to do something. Hesitantly, she walked towards the counter where Marcus Johnson awaited her, calm and imposing, as always. The customers and employees in the lobby couldn't help but exchange discreet but knowing glances. "Marcus. I want to apologize," Clara stammered, unable to meet his gaze. "I should never have behaved like that." Marcus looked at her for a long time, silent. His eyes expressed the gravity of the situation. This wasn't a simple matter of superficial apologies. After a moment, he spoke in a calm but firm voice. "Ms. Whitmore, the humiliation you caused does not define you, but your current actions do. If your apology is sincere and accompanied by genuine respect, perhaps you can begin to repair what you have broken." Clara felt a wave of relief mixed with shame. She understood that true strength lies not in money, position, or arrogance, but in respect and dignity. She had thought she could humiliate someone with impunity, and had learned the hard way that there is always someone you should never underestimate. Marcus held out his hand to her, a simple gesture but heavy with meaning. Clara hesitated, then shook it, feeling a lesson that no book or school could teach her. At that moment, Elijah Johnson, who had been discreet until then, appeared behind his brother. He smiled slightly, satisfied to see that justice and dignity had prevailed. Clara knew she still had a lot of work to do, but for the first time, she felt true humility. And in the silence of the hotel lobby, a simple yet powerful truth dawned on her: you can always get back up, but you have to learn to respect those you think are weak, because sometimes, they are the ones who hold the real power.